Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. We fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, Bennett and Mike are sitting down to talk about law enforcement professionals. LEPs. I worked at, not cops. They're the same. They're one and the same. They could be interchangeable because a police officer is a law enforcement professional. However, law enforcement professional is the overall blanket term.
Yeah, because that includes federal, state, local,
right,
sheriffs, DEA, FBI, freaking ICE, Border Patrol, the whole fucking kit and caboodle.
Dude, one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard in my life is when I looked over at a Lance Cooley who was getting ready to EAS. He had served 4 years and risen to E3. That's totally fine. But this is what he tells me. Bro, I'm infantry. The CIA is just waiting.
No, they're not.
What? And I said, okay, hold on, back up. Let me clarify this again. You have no other education whatsoever. You joined the Marines when you were 18 years old. You're now 21 years old, 22 years old. And you're an E3 in the Marine Corps. No. Like, nobody's been waiting. What are you talking about? Fucking Walmart hasn't been waiting.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're some kind of fucking high-speed, low-drag motherfucker. But if that's the case, you probably wouldn't be an E3.
Yeah, Duck Butt wasn't. No.
Well, there was a ton. It's all timing. But at that time, yeah, you guys didn't have a lot of cutting score issues.
Well, right. That was the other thing too. Is for my generation, I kept the cutting score kept closing out and all of that other shit. But that's like a story for another time. I was like, E3 forever, E4 forever, kind of a deal based upon whatever
that's just
that
the
generation.
Infantry, man.
Right. But it was funny though because there were a lot of other folks in my EAS group. You're broken down kind of into. At least this is how they did it when I was in Pendleton. They broke us down into like classroom groups. So you would have like 30, 40 folks that were in your group, and then everybody met up over at the base theater for a given period of time, throughout the week or whatever. And, dude, there were like 10 or 20 people out of my little group that were all going into law enforcement. Some form of law enforcement.
What are you doing? I'm going to be a cop. No, you're not.
Right.
Probably not.
Well, right. So, and I get it, though. It's 10 to 15% shortages wherever you go. Pretty much any large municipality in America, they have 10 to 15% shortages. You didn't realize that they did that for budgetary needs also?
Right.
Who's overstaffed?
So, speaking of police, I'm looking at law enforcement professionals. There are two here in Syracuse. They have cops at the hospitals, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
there's two state-run hospitals right by where I'm at, and they both have cops. And they just had somebody freaking pulled over. I don't know what that's all about. It's kind of funny. So many law enforcement professionals out there.
Well, and it's all encompassing also because dude, you could be an investigative law enforcement professional. That's the whole point. It's a blanket term. But the reason why I specifically wanted to bring it up is because I have had law enforcement professionals who have changed my life in their character as human beings, not necessarily in their profession. My buddy Preston handed me the book Think and Grow Rich when I was on deployment, and man, thank God he did that. And he was one of our law enforcement professionals, but he was an investigator for a long time in Atlanta, and then wound up going overseas as a contractor working as a LEP. Bear in mind, I was an advisor at the time, right? So we had this cadre of advisors working with law enforcement professionals. And I will keep the contract name out of it, But we were going out and shit, man, they were walking the wire, the same way we were.
Yeah, man. I was a law enforcement professional twice in my life. Once when I got out of the Marine Corps for a short period of time, I was a deputy sheriff. And then, so I was an actual sworn law enforcement officer.
Is your directional on?
Why? Yes! This is how shit goes, my friend. Shit happens.
He's on a fucking stakeout right now.
I am.
Ugh.
I am on a fucking stakeout.
Jesus criminy.
Hey, this is what happens. This is real life, my friend. That's what Cigars and Sea Stories is about. Real fucking life.
Well, it's funny because folks need to understand this also, that it's like when opportunity strikes, you got to hop in front of the microphone, right? So we were jiving. The last episode that we had was Jim Rochella. Make sure that you listen to this because it got our gears turning and sort of with Off-Duty Blue and a lot of these other law enforcement professionals, guys and gals who are coming out of the military, they go into law enforcement as a profession and they're picking up overtime. Well, you have the ability to go and do off-site jobs, right? You have the ability to go and do part-time work in other different avenues, and a lot of folks depend on that cash. And so anyway, it was interesting because then I was thinking about all of the different law enforcement professionals, that we had worked with, how I have never been a LEP in any capacity. I know that you have post-military career.
Yeah, on two separate occasions, I was a sworn LEP, I guess you could say, in North Carolina for a while. And then I worked, I would consider at the time nuclear security I did that for 11 years. And I mean, we were I guess you could consider law enforcement. I mean, we carried as much kit as freaking we did on any deployment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, we protected and freaking searched and seized and all that shit. The only thing we didn't do was traffic. So,
thank God.
You know what I mean? So it's not a whole lot of traffic on a nuke site, just saying.
Right.
So, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, well, I remember an incident where we had, it was during a strike, right? And you had off-duty cops that were running, they were doing bodyguard work or personal protection work for the executives of the company, right?
Right.
Because there was picket lines out in front, right? So strike security basically is what they were doing to an extent. The thing is that, yes, we were in the same union as the company, but we're not allowed to strike, right? So we had these guys that were and they happened to be off-duty police officers from the Syracuse area who were coming into the site, but nobody let us know that they were coming in armed.
Oh, Jesus.
So that shit almost got real.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
because
I do.
All of a sudden you see a guy and all of a sudden he's got he's a plainclothes guy. Could be anybody. The next thing I know, there's a dude coming through the equipment with a gun.
So that
you might want to let, this is how stupid some of these people are. I'm talking about the executives, that you wouldn't let the armed guys that protect your plant know that you've got guys with guns coming.
Well, they weren't working on the 5-paragraph business plan.
I guess not. But anyway, just kind of dumb shit. So anyway, stuff like that used to happen. But no, we weren't sworn there. But yes, I have been a sworn law enforcement officer. And yeah, it kind of sucked. I mean, a lot of guys really like that shit. And I can tell you that a lot of the work, I'm just not built to be a cop. I don't have the temperament for it.
Right.
Because as soon as I have to deal with pedophiles, I lose
over.
my shit. And that's why I went in and pretty much resigned. And that's the story. I don't know. Maybe I've told that story. But either way.
Right.
Yeah. So I ended up resigning. And basically I've revisited it a few times just because it makes sense because of the work that I've done, but I don't have the right temperament for it, and I'll be the first one to admit. I give full credit where credit's due. My father-in-law was a deputy sheriff, became a detective, and also a fire investigator. He did that for 23 years. He's retired now. And then my brother-in-law is a police officer in a township in the Syracuse area as well. So I've got a family full of freaking cops, and I give them full credit, and I will fully admit that I cannot do their fucking job.
Right.
I just can't. No, I just can't. I don't have the right temperament for it. Just like you probably don't.
Oh, yeah.
Because you want to slay bodies. And so it was funny because we talk about stories. My father-in-law was SWAT as well. So they would tell he would tell these entry stories, and I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Why don't you just put like an AT4 through the side? You know what I mean? Or some shit like that. And I remember him telling a story that they were doing some cross training with like Rangers. And the Rangers were like, yeah, we have an acceptable casualty rate. And like the cops are rolling in with like their acceptable casualty rate is 0.
Right.
And the Rangers, like, they go into the same building and just tear shit up, right? And they come out and go, yeah, we're good if we only kill half the people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's mission accomplished.
Right.
And the cops are like, what? No, we're not here preserving life, limb, and eyesight. We're here to fuck shit up.
Right.
Well,
that's like the 60-40 rule. Supposedly, and this is what I heard about leaders, supposedly as you're going through a house, you have a 60% chance of getting wounded yourself. Yourself as the operator going through the house.
I would totally agree.
And
we did a shit ton of CQB work, and
right,
dude, it's ripe for friggin'. It's not all like the movies, folks.
Right.
Sorry, again, just going to tell you, it's not all like the movies because there's a lots of places to hide. Just saying.
But the running joke is on a Marine stack, the enemy has a 60% casualty ratio. And that's what we're willing to accept, making entrance into a house. Like, if you need an HVT and you kill 60% of the people in there, and the HVT wasn't in that pool, you're good. You're totally fine. Like, you're going to be okay. You want to know something? I hear all of these stories about people who are going under investigation for all of this other shit and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what every circumstance is, but like any time that we ever killed anybody, we never went under investigation. The only time that anybody went under investigation is if there was like shady shit that was going on.
Yeah, duh. I mean,
and I never saw anybody go under investigation because we didn't have any shady shit going on. So it was like, if all we do is only kill folks, we're gonna be fine. Like, yay!
But law enforcement's totally different, man.
Oh, I know.
Like, yeah. I could not, especially, Jesus, I could not be a freaking cop now because I was a cop back in the 90s, and there was no cell phone freaking cameras and all that other shit. Like, shit got real, man. Like, you protected yourself. And the problem is the perception is at this point now that, like, cops are bad and that they're all guys that go out there and, I'm sorry, but it's the mentality of I'm going home tonight to my family.
Right.
and you hear a lot of yes, there's bad cops. Sure, of course. But I can tell you it's probably only about 10% at the very most of it's like our 10% rule in the military. You've always got 10% that's going to suck no matter what. You've got 10% that freaking that fell through the cracks. Always. In every freaking profession, in every situation, you're always going to have 10% that falls through the cracks, period.
Well, and it's funny that you bring it up in that ratio, because the other reason why I wanted to talk about law enforcement professionals specifically is I mentioned working with LEPs downrange. Well, the job as an advisor was to help assess, train, advise, and assist, right? These Afghan Uniformed Police. We were going through classes like uniform appearance and professionalism, code of conduct, ethics, how to actually conduct a proper search, how to do a two-man search, a lot of these different things, to where, you know how it is, you're working with a partner not only so that you have each other's back, but there's also a degree of accountability, right? I mean, that's...
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the way that I always look at it. You know, whenever I was walking around with a buddy, I knew that we could hold each other accountable and call each other out on one another's shit. You know, that was one of the bigger things. And so we were looking to be able to convey this across, only we had to be able to basically do it with 3 people. So, and the third person would wind up being their training NCO, right? Which their training NCO is the guy who's wearing a man dress, a vest, and one of those weird looking multicolored hats, okay? Like, this dude's rocking sandals, all right? My training NCO is right in camis with boots but that's the thing, though, is that what you're doing is you're training the trainer so that the trainer maintains accountability, but then you're working with them so that they want to maintain accountability in between one another, right? You have to want to maintain accountability. You have to want to, do the right thing. But there has to be incentive almost to do the right thing under those conditions as well. You know, isn't that weird? Somebody needs incentive to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Know? Well, and
which is kind of scary to an extent.
Well, right. Well, and I say it like that, though, because also, like, have you seen that documentary called The 7-5 on Netflix? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't, actually.
They went over the precinct that was in Brooklyn, down on the Lower East Side. I want to say, I myself not at all having set foot in any of the boroughs of New York City, okay? Just watching the documentary and seeing what wound up happening, a lot of these cops, they weren't forced into the lifestyle of being a criminal, don't get me wrong, but they also weren't making shit for money in order to lock up the criminals that they eventually wound up working to protect. You know, so in the long run, they wound up taking money under the table so that they were running protection and tipping them off when another cop was coming to raid them or what have you. But that's because they were incentivized further by the drug. You see this in police corruption all the time. What do you think happens overseas?
Right, absolutely.
Only they're doing it, dude, it's even more sadistic because it's like, you know, the Afghans don't really give a shit about money. I mean, they do, but they're like, and whatever. Like, you're giving me Afghani. So all the cops who are from different provinces, they give a shit that they have a paycheck because now they can, like, give it back. I'm trying not to give away all of those cops' secrets kind of a deal, but they have the ability to, you know, pay for their families. That's the easiest way to put it.
Right.
And then there are other law enforcement professionals that are over there that are other local, you know, AUP and what have you, that are incentivized in completely other ways. Like, hey, my family lives in Taliban-controlled country, so unfuck yourself or my family's gonna die, right? I mean, that's a really good incentive to, you know, not suck at your job. And that was
absolutely
our sergeant major and the chief of police. That was the situation at the time where we were at in Kajaki. So it was like their families were being held hostage at the time. And the police force was that much more locked on, and I honestly believe it had something to do with that. But it's crazy, though, because that was yet another moment in my military service where I was like, dude, I would never be a fucking cop. Like, again, my hat's off to you because I get it. Like, I'm not the guy who is going to be the unruly fuck that you're going to have to hold back at picket lines, okay? I'm just not going to be that dude. They have to deal They have to deal with a lot of pissed off people, and more often than not, they're dealing with the dregs of society.
For sure.
I got to give a shout out. I'm not going to use his last name, but congratulations to my buddy Brian. Brian, you're awesome. You know who you are. You're a cop out of Florida who is now going to be a federal law enforcement professional. Good job, bro. You did it. And he and I served together in Quantico, and he's a good dude and a family man. and he was on cops.
That shit's fucking funny.
Fuck
Yeah,
yes.
one of my best friends here is also a Border Patrol guy. He's freaking awesome. And he loves his job because he does a lot of different shit. It's not like he doesn't just put on the green pajamas every day and go out there and, you know, the green uniform that they wear.
Oh, I know.
Drive around. Sometimes
pajamas
he
and
does,
boots,
but,
baby. Pajamas and boots. Best kept secret.
And he gets to go fishing and pretend like he's fishing, but he's actually fishing. But because up here in the North Country, you know, our border is all fucking water for the most part.
Yeah.
And so he'll get to watch water and freaking, shit's crazy, man. We've got one of the Indian reservations up here is on both sides of the St. Lawrence River. And so they run all kinds of shit across in boats. It's like a minute and a half to get from one side of the river to the other. And we don't have jurisdiction within that space. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
man.
So basically they track what comes across all the time. It's not just the Border Patrol, but isn't that crazy?
See, now you're making me want to like murder out some jet skis and do some smuggling shit.
Right?
Just like Penny's out there in a
crazy.
fucking Line-X jet ski looking like he's out of Waterworld or some shit. You know, barely making it across. No, the thing would be ramped up. When I'm parked at the dock, it would be barely floating. But then hydrofoil under that mud trucker. And I'm like, wah! Minute and a half, just open. Whoo, rolling. I don't know when I'm going to smuggle, though. French fries and gravy,
cigarettes,
maybe.
Cigarettes or some poutine.
I'm coming back from Canada. What's this all about? What are you doing there? Eh? See, that's how they talk. Like it's cold. I should know where I'm from. You got to drive south to get to Canada. It's cold up there in the Great White North.
Well, you can also drive north to get to Canada too.
You can. Yes.
You're kind of surrounded by Canada.
Kind of.
Actually.
Not
kind of.
Well, we have
three sides. Three sides.
Not three sides. What do you get? 3 sides, dude. What are you talking about?
Three sides.
Yeah, if Canada won a fictitious war with America and made a significant land grab to take Wisconsin.
So half.
Okay.
Half then. Half. How about that?
It covers. Yeah, I mean, I'm originally from Michigan. If people don't know,
Michigan. They have ways to Well, they have access to your whole country. They have access to your whole fucking state, unimpeded. By the way,
I'm just gonna let them go. Is Africa a country too? Oh, Jesus.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand. I'm literally looking at a map of the U.S. because I keep it, but time zone wise for guests and shit. I'm like, where's this guy at? Oh yeah, Nevada. So it's late out there. Yeah, but yes, Canada is right there. Well, and I'll tell you what's funny. A lot of people ask, why does the DNR have as much power as they do out especially in Michigan? And there are areas where the DNR has a great deal of authority.
Explain to us what the DNR is.
The Department of Natural Resources.
Yup.
So it's like game wardens, but it's way...
Oh, I know. I know what it is. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm just letting our audience. Here in New York, it's the DEC.
Well, so the thing about DNR in Michigan is that Michigan, as I'm sure you know, is still it's not as developed as a lot of other states. We'll just put it to you that way. I don't want to call it remote because it's not remote, but there are areas in Michigan, even in the lower peninsula, where it's like, dude, you're alone and unafraid out in the woods.
Yeah, when you go out west towards the western side, there's not a whole lot there.
Right. So DNR, keep in mind that anytime they approach somebody, they're probably walking up on a hunter, and hunters are always armed. So that kind of gives them a little bit more authority. Hey, we're going to have to deal with every person that we deal with is going to be armed. Let's just put it to you that way. Right? So that puts a different twist on things. Some of the people that they deal with also are in a major panic because they've been running around the woods trying to figure out how the hell to get out of there. And they're freaked out. Trust me, I've seen that before. I've seen guys come through the woods with half their shit hanging off of them trying to get a bearing on their compass. And it's like, hey, buddy, you okay? yeah. And I'm like, did you shoot an azimuth? And he's like, what's that? Oh, shit. Okay. Do you have a compass? I mean, fuck, man. That
My
happens.
GPS doesn't work out here.
Dude, I'm telling you, bro. Well, because when you get into Michigan woods, what's crazy about it is you start walking through some of these different thick areas, and before you know it, you pop out into, I won't call it a true clearing, but it's like a little opening space. Okay, so I consider, I walk via deer trails, and I can see all the highways and byways in the woods. If you're a hunter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can see where the animals are moving through there. So what these are major intersections in the middle of the woods. A guy or a gal will get into one of those major intersections and they have no idea where they're at from there on out. Because it's a roundabout. It's basically a circle in the middle of the woods. Now they're walking the wrong way entirely and trying to... Oh, God. It's nuts, man. How it happens, I do not know. But the DNR also, to an extent, I mean, have... I won't call them Border Patrol because they're not. We have our own. Plus, Coast Guard is running out in the Great Lakes. I had buddies in the Marine Corps who are like, so you can like see across those, right?
Jesus.
Are you fucking
Seriously?
serious? Right.
No,
exactly.
it's like a fucking ocean, bro.
Right. Exactly.
No, it's like
sea.
all there is a freshwater sea. That's it. Like guys, I explained to them like like Lake Superior's what? Jesus. Is it? I don't even know what size it would be compared to like the Black Sea, but it's pretty fucking big.
Yeah, it is massive, and you are correct in calling them inland seas. Inland freshwater, awesome, beautiful seas.
That's why I'm really glad that I live by one, because I'll never run out of water.
Yeah, there you go.
Just saying.
But it's funny though, because like Washington State, I think that they're called game wardens also. They encounter a lot of the similar stuff as what we're talking about here.
They got that Northwoods Law. They're on TV, man.
Right.
Those fuckers.
Well, and they got Mick Dodge types that are out there bebopping around.
Yes, they do.
They got all those folks also. But I mean, free country, you know what I'm saying?
Guys are harmless.
Free to pursue your own happiness, Well, then what I think's amazing that a lot of people do not give our law enforcement professionals credit for is the coordination that does happen. Because you're talking about, and I'm saying this,
especially after 9/11.
Well, yeah, but also, and say what you will about the marathon bombing, how it all went down in the days that are following. I was not there for the bombing. I was in a different location, thank God. So was my wife and kids. And so we were there during the moments of, like, the whole city was in lockdown. They were driving around. Cops were driving around saying, stay in your homes. Which was just like police state shit, in my opinion. And then what I thought was hilarious is all of my friends from Best Buy who were like, dude, you're crazy for having all those guns. Like, if they would have caught me in Massachusetts with all the guns that I had, I would be in prison right now. Prison. I would be serving 15 plus years in prison for the guns that I had.
Correct.
They are calling me, and they're like, hey, bro, you got your guns, right? Like, yes, I do. I got them all out. They're all loaded. They're all condition 1. And I'm playing Call of Duty in my underwear because I ain't scared of shit. Matter of fact, I put a note on my door that said, be back in a month, and turned off all the lights. I'm going to work this fucker over in my basement for a couple of minutes before I call the cops. All right?
This isn't your backyard hiding in your fucking boat.
Right. That ain't my boat. So, but what I thought was great, though, was the interagency communication in order to find these fuckers. Why they stayed in the area, I have no, whatever. I've analyzed that every other which way, and I'm just like, these people are fucking dumb. But the law enforcement professionals did a great job in finding them, coordinating it off, and then HRT goes in, so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts that are associated with that. It's not as easy as you think, getting multiple agencies to start communicating with one another. And you're all operating on different plans, and this guy's like, oh man, I'm on overtime now. So many other, the civil terrain conditions in that operations order is baffling, right?
Well, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to command and control and mutual respect. So if you've got a agency like the interagency bullshit is all because they're measuring their dicks. So if you have a place, and say Boston, where the marathon bombing happens, if you've got a person that takes charge, other people will fucking follow. So what happens is that a lot of times, like a municipality will call for help from the FBI, and the FBI comes in and takes charge. That's not what we asked for. We asked for assistance.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but if you've got whoever was in Boston, I don't know who took the lead. If it was Boston PD or who it was, I have no idea. Or it was the FBI, because it was an actual terrorist attack. They had jurisdiction. So if you stop measuring dicks and you just have somebody that actually is a leader come in and take command and start directing traffic, shit usually gets done. You know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it is in the military. It's like, yeah, I mean, he might not be in my direct chain of command, but at the end of the day, if he's doing shit right, I'll follow him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. It's a matter of having competent fucking leadership in a situation. And obviously in that situation there was.
Right.
Just like there was with a whole bunch of other incidents in this right. country in the last few years, where you have actual decent law enforcement officers that are in charge. They're not just politicians, that they're actual law enforcement, and they get it, will come in and take charge of the situation and get shit done. Right. That's the difference. Well,
and that's the reason why we created these JTS, the Joint Task Force, in between the interagencies and what have you.
Oh my God, don't even get me started on that shit.
Well, and the whole intent behind that was so that we had a methodology of being able to share intelligence. It wasn't a command and control element. See, keep in mind now, I am not a law enforcement professional. I am a guy who studied law enforcement professionals so that I could be an advisor, so that I could work with other law enforcement professionals and marry up these different elements, okay? So I'm like a law enforcement professional marriage counselor. Gotcha? You know what I mean? So like if you had two law enforcement professional agencies that were sitting in front of me, I would be able to work with them on a moderator type basis where you're creating a structure in between the two. Well, that was the point, is to create a structure for sharing intelligence. More often than not, this guy's form is different than their form and talks about certain variable pieces of data. And so now you have, and you're just talking about investigative services at this point. We're not even talking about, we have no standardization. And I know that a lot of people like to think that there is, but if you get into a stack with the hostage rescue team and you've been rolling stacks with recon the entire time, shit is different. They have different,
totally different,
right? And their TTPs are different. Their SOPs are different. All of their go signs are different. Their DMs do different shit. All sorts of stuff. So all you see is tactical guys, which is great because we look uniform, and that's fine. But you've got cops that are running the outer cordon. You've got sheriff that are running the inner cordon. You've got SWAT elements that are doing sweep and clears, which are not CQB kicking your front door. They're just kind of sweeping through your neighborhood to see whether or not any shitheads are around. And then you actually have the HRT guys where it's like, if shots are going to be fired, they will be the ones who take it because that's their job. That's literally all that they do all day long. That's HRT, right?
Especially in big municipalities like that.
Right.
A lot of places don't have them, but
which I've seen. I keep in mind that it's like I've seen HRT in action, and I've seen HRT train because we shared a fence line. So I've seen them do a lot of these different things downrange. I'm not Billy Badass. I'm observing these different things from a command and control and from a joint task force side of things. But you're right. You need to have unified command, but you need to have a methodology of being able to communicate in between all of these different agencies. That shit is difficult. And by communication, I don't mean immediate on the field coordination. What I'm saying is just the ability to share intelligence, because more often than not, that's where we stumble. And that's why downrange on the battlefield, I mean, frankly, we have all the same reports. You know, that's the one thing that the government actually understands. Right?
Yeah, that's the one thing that the military gets right.
Right.
One of the things is the op order. It's the same everywhere.
Right.
I mean, there's little nuances, but it's not that bad.
Well, right, in the way that we debrief and the way that we do after action reviews.
They're relatively the same.
Right. And I'm not saying that everybody does them. Hello. I'm talking if you do it properly under your own terms, if you do a proper debrief where like you strip kit, you sit down, you're sweaty as fuck and you've got a canteen and your notepad, and then you start debriefing around the map. That's how it's supposed to go, immediately after patrol. And then you kick your after action review or reports, depending upon whatever your procedures are, what have you, and then that gets passed along to higher. And typically it winds up going to G2, maybe. But that's the thing, though, is that we have that sort of inner area of operation, you know, the total battle space has a reporting procedure on how to push intelligence top to bottom, you know, throughout the entire process. And law enforcement has adopted that across, and now law enforcement looks much more militaristic in what they're doing, and it freaks people out. Because they're like, I don't like that. They look like military. These guys are paramilitary folks. They're like in our neighborhood and clacking shields and everything else like that. I don't know. I'm not paying attention to the riots, honestly, or anything else. Oh, wait a minute. There aren't any riots? Oh. Like, come on, man. There are no serious riots that are happening right now. No city is burning, you know, or anything else like that. I mean, honestly, there's a little bit of agitation that's going on out there as far as protests that are concerned. But I'm looking around going like, no, this is okay. We're doing all right. You know, like, you know, not being a cop, I'm just looking around, and I have cops, you know, for neighbors and a sheriff down the way and a buddy who trains law enforcement on the SWAT and all of this other stuff. And in and around this area, I mean, shit, you know, nothing's happening. You know what I mean? Like, it's understandable to an extent here in local America, like where I grew up in Midland, Michigan, 20 minutes down the road, Saginaw, Michigan. I'm sorry, Saginaw, Michigan is a shithole. Flint, Michigan is a shithole. Those were right down the way. Detroit, Michigan is a shithole. And those are like right down the street from where I grew up, and we didn't give a fuck what was going on down there. It was funny because a lot of the law enforcement professionals were coming out of that region up into my hometown. So now you've got these locked and caught guys, and they're walking around my hometown. My hometown is one of the most strict places to live. It was on MTV being quoted for one of the dumbest laws you could ever conceive, which is you will be fined for swearing on a public telephone, which I have literally watched a cop write a ticket to a child, a 15-year-old kid, for swearing on a public telephone at a movie theater. Hand out a stack of Bibles.
That's awesome.
So you got a Detroit cop who's trying
because you live in fucking Illuminativille.
Well, no, it's because he went from Detroit and he's like, I'm never fucking going back there. I will meet quota. He's like, you know, it's just, dude, I don't know. I mean, law enforcement professionals are different wherever you go. Each one of them has a different job. It's all under that blanket. But I'm telling you right now, if you serve 4 years in the Marine Corps, the CIA is not waiting for you.
And they're not really law enforcement exactly.
No, they aren't.
They're not at all, actually. So
not at all. So
unless you're an actual CIA police officer, which they do have.
Right,
they're
they
more
have,
like
uniform
security,
division.
but they are at Langley, you know.
Well, and that's that's like
they're access control. That's basically what they are. Just saying.
Well, and it's like but the point being is that you're gonna need other additional education if you would like to come out of the military and go into actual law enforcement. Like, we know that, right? You can't just walk out of the military and go straight into being a cop.
Not anymore. No.
Right. So let's consider that in our life plan. All right, folks? Just want to highlight that. And I think that it's funny because, like I said, we brought up Jim Rochella and Off Duty Blue. He was our last episode. Great guy, great Marine. A lot of Marines, a lot of infantry types wind up going into law enforcement, and it is fantastic. It's not for guys like us who enjoy slaying buddies. But it's one of those things where it's like the inner communication that's going on and all of this other stuff. I wanted to bring light to this because I have a lot of people in my life who they're not throwing around conspiracy theories or anything, but they're worried. They're worried about a paramilitary force and all of this other stuff. And I'm just like, what are you?
I know you listen to Alex Jones. I know you do.
No, I don't. I figured I don't. No. I found out who he was earlier this year. I just work and
yeah, for me, basically.
Right.
That's why.
And other people are like, you're right, but you're addressing some of those things. I'm like, well, I guess because all of those people who are listening to him are asking me, and I'm going, think about how hard it is to coordinate a fucking grocery store. Do you think that they have the ability to coordinate all of those people? Do you think that they have the ability, I get it, the wool being pulled over one's eyes in order to go and direct them.
The shit with false flags and all that shit you're talking about.
It's all so much.
They can't even, the government can't even fucking get healthcare correct. So, I'm sorry.
Right.
No, most people are not that adept at
they don't
concealing anything.
Right.
They're because here's an observation, folks, from freaking basically my entire life dealing with people, okay? As a cop, as a trained observer, most people are fucking stupid as fuck. I'm not, and I don't necessarily mean
I know
that
exactly what you mean.
In such a horrible fucking way. It sounds horrific. But the bottom line is most people have zero, I'm talking about fucking zero common sense. The majority of our audience will agree with me. There'll be that guy that gets butthurt by that, but oh well.
Right.
Most people are fucking talking monkey, knuckle dragging idiots when it comes to the way of the world. Okay? Now, they might be able to freaking function. They might be able to do this and have a job and sit behind a desk and be really smart with numbers and stuff. But when it comes down to shit that actually matters, they're fucking retarded.
Very
actually,
true.
How can I feed myself? How can I clothe myself? How can I? And when you start looking at the world from an actual Maslow's hierarchy, you understand how the real world works, right? And trust me, and the people that pray for freaking society to break down, they're fucking even dumber than the freaking smartest. You know what I mean? Seriously? Really? You want that? That's what you want. That's it. Oh, well, it all needs to reset. Are you fucking kidding me? You know what I'm saying, Mike.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Those guys are they're just idiots, bro.
And I don't think
it's one thing to be prepared. It's another thing to be stupid and prepared. Meaning, you're praying for the world to collapse. Why? So you and everything you love can die? Because that's what's going to happen.
Right.
The chances of survival beyond whatever, if the grid were to go down, you know what I mean?
Right.
Can you imagine? We're 72 hours from disaster in this fucking country.
Right.
At any given moment. Think about that. Think about if the grid went down and you had no electricity for 72 hours in a major metropolitan area. You're fucked. Unless you have a plan and a way to deal with it. And then even after that, you're still fucked. Life ain't going to be fun. It's not going to be all tranquil and fucking Little House on the Prairie, motherfucker.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is why we have laws. This is why we have law enforcement. This is why we have guys that sacrifice themselves to do the shit that they do. Because at the end of the day, most people are fucking stupid. That's what it comes down to.
Well, and and I don't have a.
I can write a dissertation on this shit, but I don't have time. So
I don't have any animosity towards anybody who wants to go and isolate themselves or anything. I'm just trying to say, like,
but it's a different animal, bro.
Well, right, and we don't.
I don't care if you want to be Bobbly Swagger. That's fine.
Right.
Go ahead.
But
Have
what I'm saying is a Ruby Ridge scenario, because where I'm going with this is, at the end of the day, with the Ruby Ridge scenario, you had so many different things that were happening on both sides of that equation, to where law enforcement and the family that had barricaded themselves, it was just a terrible situation in general. And there were a lot of different things in analyzing the situation where it's like, wow, a lot of terrible things all had to go terribly wrong in order for this situation to work, or in order for this to happen.
Well, because Murphy owned that situation.
Right. Well, and the other thing, too, though, that we learned coming out of this, that you've got to realize, Ruby Ridge is still fresh within the minds of law enforcement professionals.
Well, you have to understand, too. Let me also put in places like Waco and things like that.
Right.
And just let me put this idea forward. Don't be a fucking slave or a robot to the system. There's a point when you have to be a human fucking being. Do you understand?
Yes.
There's a point when you have to be a human being. And that's something that's unfortunately, and I'm telling you, not all law enforcement, but a lot of law enforcement, at least the powers that be, are hiring people that they can manipulate to not be human, basically, to just look at things very, very analytically. Do you understand? The guys that are actually empathetic and caring people usually aren't cops anymore.
Right.
The way that they recruit has totally changed. So you have these pencil pushers that want power a lot. You know what I'm saying? That maybe got bullied in school, this and that. I'm not saying everyone, for fuck's sake, people. I'm saying there is a distinct shift in the people that they hire to be cops. That's the truth.
Well, and it's one of these.
So, and part of that is because they can put an SOP in front of them, and that person will follow the SOP to the letter, no matter how stupid it is, or no matter how dehumanizing it is. They will still do it because that's their mission, that's their order, that's their whatever. You do find it with the military as well. There's a point when you have to stop and go, wow, I'm a fucking human being. Look at what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just like a guy. This is a whole lesson. I'm not going into it. We could do a whole episode on that shit. That's moral.
But you've gone all the way to the
ethics.
point. You have gotten all the way to the point. The human being, the heart inside of the uniform.
Correct.
The mind that is operating the body, which then transfers into a weapon. That is a human being.
Yes.
That's it. Right? So whether you're a law enforcement professional or not, you're human first. All of us are.
Yes.
Whether
you should be.
Whether you're
and so should the criminal.
Right.
The criminal is too, but it's the problem you run into is that society has created people that aren't as human as they fucking should be.
Well, and I could put Capone or Nelson in here who will straight up tell you that they are criminals. 100%. They are more honest than the people that they are going against. They're like, yep, I'm a fucking criminal. I'm not going to tell you how I'm doing all that shit. But that's part of How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you've ever read through that book,
it's true.
also.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So,
all right.
Good stuff. Thank you, folks, for joining us on this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories. Hey, if you're a law enforcement professional and you got your own sea stories, right? You're a veteran turned cop or sheriff or HRT or FBI or EIEIO, whatever the hell you wind up doing. Join the conversation. Get in touch with us. It's contact@cigarsandseastories.com, or you can just reach out to either one of us, Mike at cigarsandseastories.com, Bennett at cigarsandseastories.com. You can follow us on social media at cigarsandc, which is also our discount code. And thank you to veteranslist.us. Using that discount code, you will get 50% off a featured membership, half off a featured membership by entering discount code CIGARSANDC on veteranslist.us when you sign up for a featured membership. Spartan Media, thank you for building the website. Jeremy, keep rocking, bro. Heroes Media Group, Adam, Dave, all of the guys, everybody over there. You guys are kicking ass and taking names, and thank you so much for all of your support. It is greatly appreciated. Folks, keep listening, keep sharing. We have a lot more stuff that's happening, more bonus content that's going to be coming out, 5-paragraph business plans coming out. We're doing more speaking engagements, more voice acting work, more in-studio work, more video, more lives, all sorts of stuff. We ain't going anywhere. We're lockstep, one foot in front of the other. Rah? You know what I'm talking about, right, Bennett? You know what I'm talking about. Look at that. That was like superhuman awesomeness. Thank you, folks, for joining us on this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories. Keep listening. And on that note, we cue the music.
Our flag unfurled to every breeze, from dawn to setting sun.